got 6 wings. All right, there are 6 sets of bones in my basket. You have your barbecue sauce, old fashions. You have your. Not down for this. Oh, because everybody's having some money troubles right about now. I mean, from all different ways, people are getting squeezed in lots of different directions, you know? Like we already know, tariffs are almost old news now. But the fallout isn't. The fallout is fresh. The Dow has only dropped by 1,000 points 11 times in history. And
test,
4 of them
one, two,
were in like
test.
the last 2 months. Like
Test, 1, 2, test.
This is very bad. If this were a roller coaster, this would be the part of the ride where your neck breaks. Like, it's just... Engineers don't build this way. This is not safe. And you see it through the tariffs. I've talked about it before, but those people on the money channels, they're still a bit nervous. Still freaking out, you know. They still come on every day. One of my favorite things about watching them now is they talk to us like we're the news. They're there doing the news, but they looking right in the camera like, I don't. What y'all think? Oh, it's bad. You know, like just this week, you know, you had people losing money in all sorts of ways. I mean, Christy Nome. Christy Nome was at a restaurant, got her bag stolen, right? And I don't know. It is wild. Okay, because then you have to. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to put this. Okay, so then when you report your bag as stolen, right, and you gotta list the contents of your bag, you know, her bag had her driver's license in it, had her passport in it. She had $3,000 in cash in her bag. $3,000 in American dollars. $3,000 in cash. What you doing, Christy? That's $3,000. North American, South of Canada dollars. She had $3,000. That would make sense if this was like the 90s. You know, it's the 90s. You got it like that. You got 3,000 on you. You know, okay, you might see a food truck want to treat the town. $3,000 in cash in 2025. $3,000 in the year of our Lord Apple Pay. If I had been the cop that she reported to, that the miss, and she told me, listen in the back, oh, my DHS badge, my passport, my driver's license, so much stuff was in there. I had a couple of Jolly Ranchers, and oh yeah, $3,000 in cash. I'd be like, oh, do you rap or something? Like, why do you have that much cash on you? No, she had $3,000 in cash, but the kicker for me was she had a bunch of blank checks. I don't even have to, yeah. You
Wow.
still write checks in 2025. You just got that blank check on you just in case something pop off, and $3,000 in cash isn't enough. This is the most prepared to be mugged individual I've ever seen in my entire life. That is insane. You already got $3,000 in cash. Imagine you pull up on Christy though, you're like, give me everything. And then she like, here, you about to walk away. And then for whatever reason, you don't know why, you just feel led for one moment. You look over your shoulder back at her. She got a pen. You said give you everything, you know. A bunch of blank checks. I don't even know if the thief would know what to do. Like, there used to be whole departments dedicated to check fraud. And now it's like two dudes. People are not writing checks like that anymore. I bet you they dump the contents out. They're like, oh, we score. We got $3,000 in cash. We got her DHS badge. I'm sure she's going to want that back. We got her passport, her driver's license. Oh, we got everything. Why she got a bunch of little papers with her name on it? Some people so conceited. No, because I had an incident happen to me when I was in college, where I left for the break, and when I got back, the RA, resident assistant, comes up to me as soon as I get back on campus, and she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna walk with you to your room." Now, you could get in trouble at the school I was in. It was a dry campus. You could get in trouble for like having alcohol in your room, or like if they found anything. Sometimes if there was even a whisper of something in your room, they'd at least want to check it out. And so I didn't know if maybe somebody had said something. I lived in my own room. I had my own like dorm room by myself, and so I was like, I know nothing should be in there that I don't know about, unless maybe I left it unlocked, somebody put something in there. I don't know. So I'm kind of freaking out on the walk to get to my room, and then I go ahead, I open the door, and before I open the door, she's like, okay, don't freak out. And I was like, that's not how you start. It's the least helpful way. She's like, don't freak out. While people were gone on campus, there were a series of break-ins, and your room was one of the ones that was broken into. All right? Now, this isn't like me being like poor me, but everything I had is everything I had, right? So I like the stuff that I left there, I have one of everything. All right? And same for the stuff at home. And so I'm opening the door thinking like, oh my gosh. Like, I don't have money to replace things that might be missing or broken. You know? So I open the door, and my room is trashed. It's like fully ransacked and everything. And then she's like, you just make a list, okay? Make a list of everything that's missing, and we'll figure out if like the like Department of Public Safety on campus and the school at large can like help you recover some of it, or you know, maybe, who knows, maybe the school can like come up with the funds to help you get the stuff that was missing. And so I look around, and I'm moving clothes out of the way, and all the stuff. I opened my closet. They were in my closet too, and everything. And it takes a little while, but quietly I realized to myself that They didn't take anything. This. Do you know how embarrassing it is to get your place broken into? And a thief is like, I'm good. What do you do? What do you do? You know, I'm in my head, quietly walking around, you know, all right, still standing in the doorway and everything. I'm getting defensive in my head. I'm like, all right, I got a couple of good DVDs, all right? They not Fight Club fans? Like, no, I got a PS1. I know the PS3 is out, but I had a 1. They could pawn that. You know, they don't even have imagination. So finally the RA is like, so, anything? And I was like, yeah, they took my Gucci watch. I had 2 Chanel bracelets. You gotta put the bracelets down. Please write the bracelets down, okay? And I had about $3,000 in cash. You know, here, and it's to pay for the things that we already enjoyed. Does that make sense? Like the framing of it, I think, is why people have such a problem. You know, like if you just sent back the tax return and then listed the stuff, yeah, I mean, we might be like, oh, I didn't know that I kept the bridge open. That's good. That's pretty good. I use that bridge every day. I'm glad it's not in shambles. Oh, that's fantastic news. You have to pay your taxes not just because the government is telling you to. It's not the government being some big bad meanie or something. It's you live here. And you use the road, so maybe chip in so that it doesn't fall all the way apart, you know? And like that's not to say, really quick, that's not to say that I just, you know, pay my taxes blindly and love it and never question where it's going, because it is your money as well, so you deserve to have some say in where it goes. That's why we elect people to Congress. You know, it's why we pick the officials that we pick, even on a local level, because we're like, you work for me. You are my employee, and here are the things that I want to see. These are things that I don't want to see. It feels like in this moment we're in a real predicament of, I guess the best way I can describe it is I used to work at a store, and when I worked there, they promoted this one guy that was like, you know, one of us, one of the cashiers. They promoted him, and they really shouldn't have done it. They clearly weren't paying attention. Like I was barely a good employee, and he was worse than me by far. And they promoted him. I was like, that blows my mind. And I wasn't jealous. It wasn't like I wanted a promotion. I felt like my duties to my level of commitment were right on par. Like I was like, let me stack the grapes. Let me stock the shelves. Don't ask me to do more, and I promise not to do less. Okay? You know? But he, you know, he was actively bad, and they promoted him. And a good example was he wanted to go to business school, and one of the assistant managers said, oh, I used to, you know, go to business school. Like I graduated from business school. I tell you what, I will give you all my old business school books. I don't know how much of it will transfer, how much it will actually help you, but it can get you started before you actually start school. You might be able to learn some of the basic concepts. It'll help you, right? And that was a very nice thing to do. He didn't need to do that. I respected that. very, very much. He saw somebody with a dream. He wanted to help them along, you know? And so he gave him these books. And I'm not even kidding. The next day, this dude comes to work and accidentally knocks over about a pallet's worth of wine because he was walking while reading the book. The book, I'm not even kidding, was called How to Understand Business. And this is who you promoted. You know, we're in the business of selling groceries. We buy groceries from places, we hold them until people want to buy them from us, and then we sell them to them. We're in the business of buying and selling groceries. He will stand in direct conflict with our ability to buy and sell groceries. And you promoted him. Yo, we're in a similar predicament now. As a country, we're in a similar situation because Pete Hegseth got in trouble again for the same thing from before. Basically, if you're not familiar, a bunch of people who are supposed to were using the app Signal to, talk about war plans, and quick gist, they accidentally invited a journalist, and then the mission kicks off. They do the attack. The attack is successful, and everyone finds out, and they're like, "That was dumb. Don't do that again." And everybody was like, "We can't promise that. Like, that's not." Okay. Well, fast forward to rewind, we are in the same situation again because unbeknownst to, I guess, anybody at the time, Pete Hegseth had not only been using Signal to discuss war plans, he had a whole other channel where he was just talking to his wife, his brother, and his personal attorney. And you couldn't. This is what genuinely bothers me. Like this is what actually upsets me about the whole thing. Some people are upset. They're like, I can't believe they were discussing such sensitive information that should have been. They can say it's not top secret. They can say it's not classified, but it's at least something that we should hold tight until the mission happens. And he's just discussing it plainly on this app that could be hacked. And it's like those things. Discussing it with people who shouldn't know isn't actually my problem. Maybe this is my own hot take, but I feel like that sort of thing happens all the time. I think anyone who's like married to someone in government, anyone who's married to someone high up in any business knows some things that they're not supposed to know. That's like human, actually. You don't think Michelle Obama? You don't think Michelle Obama was kept up at night knowing stuff she wasn't supposed to know? You hear me? You think Michelle Obama was in the White House like, Barack, what's wrong? And then Barack was like, it's classified. No. I don't think that happens. I'm sure Michelle was in the White House minding her own business, eating a veggie plate. Barack halfway kicks open the door. I've had it up to here with them. Okay? They want to kill everybody. They want to blow the world up. Now you sitting there, you Michelle, you like, oh, I don't even want my carrots anymore. Oh, no. The thing that bothers me is that he couldn't just be professional, and wait for an hour till he got home to tell her in person. Like, just do it the way people normally do it. Walk in the door, be like, you won't believe. Like, that's the way you do it. But when I pay my taxes, I do get upset when I see it blatantly being misused. You know, like when like when Pete Hegseth is supposedly building a $40,000 studio in the Pentagon to do his makeup before he goes on TV. I'm like, that, even if even a dollar of that is mine, I'm very upset. Like, I'm not saying I'm the whole 40, but like, that's so insane. Secretary of in the makeup room. Should he be at war? Like, um, every once in a while, you come into contact with somebody that you know from you know in a personal way, and eventually, maybe this has happened to some of you. Um, you turn on local news and you see them, and you're like, I knew it was gonna be something. You know what I mean? Maybe it's the 8 o'clock, the 10 o'clock news, but they did something. You see that mug shot and everything. When I was in Chicago, I worked with this dude when okay. At our job, in the break room, we had a light sensor for the light switch. So you could just press it, lights come on, or, if nobody was in there or if you didn't move for long enough, lights go off, right? And one day, I'm walking into the break room, take my break, lights are off. I walk in, lights come on, and he's sitting there, already in the break room, eating barbecue. And let me go out on a limb right now and say that if you eat barbecue in the dark, you are a murderer, okay? You're already guilty in my mind. If you are that comfortable with bones in the dark, there's no telling what else you're capable of. If you are that comfortable slipping and sliding on your teeth and tongue, barbecue is messy enough in the light. You should have seen his face when the lights came on. It was insanity. And then I walk in and he not even in my, if it were me and that happened, because I try to put myself in his shoes. I try to be empathetic. I'm like, okay, let's say you eating barbecue in the break room on your break, right? Kind of a heavy meal for a 15-minute break, but to each their own, you know what I mean? You go be sleepy when you come back, but I want everybody to enjoy their life. So let's say you're eating barbecue in the break room and you are somehow doing it so still. I'm not saying he should be hitting the rib like corn on the cob. You know what I mean? I'm not like I'm not saying he should be digging into it with his face. Like, in case you're wondering, that is, at least in my mind, the sound you make when you eat barbecue in the dark. Like that. If you eat barbecue in the dark, you don't eat it like the rest of us. The rest of us chew like civilized people, but if you in the dark eating barbecue, you are wilding out. You're doing whole other sounds and effects that the rest of us don't do, I'm not saying that you need to be doing a bunch of extra movements when you eat your barbecue. I'm just saying if you're doing it so still, munch, munch, munch. Munch, munch, munch. Munch, 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 munch. Munch, munch, yum. Munch, munch. munch. If you're doing it so subtle that a light sensor, that technology was like, ain't nobody in the room. And then they decide to shut the lights off on you, and you still did not feel led to change the conditions of your meal. If you were eating barbecue in the break room and then the lights go off and you're like, that's even better. That tells me you're not right in the head. Something is going on with your mind or your spirit. Something is evil in you. Munching away. And then you think to yourself, oh, what if someone walks in? What if someone walks in and feels like, this is awkward. This is weird. I would hate for them to judge me and my entire personality based off of one instance, you know? Maybe I should get up and paw my way, if the lights don't come on, to the light switch and press it so the lights come on and the room is once again filled with God's holy light. Even tried to extend that olive branch and be like, you know what? He probably didn't want to get barbecue sauce on the switch. You know what I mean? Maybe that's what it was. Maybe he thought if he was flinging his hands, he'd get barbecue sauce on the walls. That would look even scarier because now I walk in, the wall's red, you got a bone in your hand, you munching away. Really try to put myself in that headspace. Try to be fair to him. And after I got through thinking all those thoughts, I was like, nah, the whole thing was weird. No, I was right. It's insane. Okay. Side note. I left that job, right? And one day I was catching up with a different coworker. I was telling them what happened. Right. I was like, hey, I was super weird. Like I get in there and, you know, he'd been in the dark, so he wasn't fazed. It wasn't like something just happened and I walked in right after or whatever. And they were like, oh, you know what? I didn't want to tell anybody. But the same thing happened to me. Which means on a different day, this man was eating barbecue so gentle that he lost the light again. And this dude, okay, so look, so my coworker told me, they were like, no, okay, so when I walked in, that light, I think, was genuinely broken because I walked in and it was still dark. Like it didn't just come on because I swung the door open, right? So we at least know now he didn't turn the lights off on himself. Because I did worry about that. I did worry that man took his break, went to the break room with his barbecue, knew what he was about to do, knew how unchristian he was about to behave, set the barbecue down on the table and was like, nobody needs to know. But yeah, so apparently there was a problem with the light in the break room, and they were like, yeah, but when I walked in, he was eating the barbecue, and I'm pretty sure he was choking. Which would make you feel bad for him for a second, until you really put yourself in that situation. Because if you walk in to a dark room, you assume nobody's in there. And the sound of someone choking on barbecue in a dark room does sound like a demon. It does sound. If you walk in and start. No, do it real quick. Close your eyes. Close your eyes real quick. I want everybody to close their eyes. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Piece of brisket getting caught in the back of your throat, and now you sound like Beelzebub. No, no. And so then when the light, when the light from the door spilled in, they saw him and they couldn't really make him out because they were kind of blocking the light themselves, just standing in the doorway. And they said that they just saw him like eating in the corner. Which, why are you facing the wall? I forgot to mention that. That happened to me too. He was facing the wall. It's already dark. You don't need to worry about being seen. But he's facing the wall going. I was like, what did you do? What did you do when that happened? And they were like, I thought it was a demon. I yelled out loud, I rebuke you. And then I closed the door. Oh, man. So then, I'm chilling in my apartment in Chicago and watching the news. And I see a mugshot with a familiar face who had been arrested for trying to rob a barbecue restaurant. It's especially tough right now because I think people are getting squeezed from more angles than we thought was possible, right? It's like, wages aren't increasing, jobs are hard to come by because of layoffs. Some of the layoffs are like the seasonal layoffs when, companies restructure and everything, things that we're actually used to. But then some of them are people losing their jobs in government. Some people are losing their jobs in the private sector in place of potential like AI advancements and stuff. All while you have the tariffs going on. And I truly believe that some of it is preventable. Obviously, there's going to be ebbs and flows with every economy. There's going to be ebbs and flows with every country throughout its history of how rich it is or what how markets fluctuate. Some of these are unforced errors, and some of these are things that just happen, but it's all happening at one time, And I think very basically, I wish everyone could agree on it, but we're not there yet, that just by being human, just by virtue of being alive, you deserve access to basic necessities, the most basic of things, right? And especially if you're working. If you are working full time and you're still struggling to get the basic, we're talking about food, water, and shelter. We're talking about the most basic things. And I think sometimes when you bring up the people who are having a rough time, they're having a rougher go of it than is just, right? Life isn't fair, but you build the scale so that things can level out, so that they can be just. And when you talk about people who are having a rough time, who need extra help to try to get level, and they're working, they're doing their best. I think people conflate that with people who want luxuries or they want something for free. These people are already working. We are the hardest working country in the world. We clock more hours than anybody else, and we every year have less and less to show for it. We have less to show in healthcare. We have less to show in education and possibility of upward mobility. Every year we work harder, and every year we have less. We take less vacation days than pretty much anyone in the world, and for all of our hard work, we are not seeing the fruits of our labor. And there are people who will tell you, oh, but if you just work a little bit harder, if you just do it this way, oh, I'm smart, I figured it out, you will too. It's people who are not addressing the fact that everyone does not get a fair shake. Like You only need to look at me as an example. You don't think I want to be in the NBA? I did everything that I was supposed to do. I ate my greens. All right, I shot the ball. I did the running. I did everything. But trust me, if I show up to an open tryout and shoot my shot for whatever team will have me, they will be calling security. All right. And finances work in a similar way. I'm not coming down on anybody who came up well, went to a good school, and then through that good school, you made a connection, which got you your job, which affords you your lifestyle. I'm not saying you don't work hard. I'm saying everyone doesn't have that same opportunity, you know? And I think that at the very basis, right? At the very basis of food, water, and shelter, people get it in their head that even shelter means, oh, a lavish house or something. Lavish. I'm not talking about lavish things. I'm talking about enough to get by. Everyone is fighting to get by. When you talk to people who don't have about what they want, they just want to be level. You know, they're not asking for expensive, lavish things like outdoor furniture. Patio furniture is ridiculously expensive. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's literally outside. You don't even want it in your home. It's almost trash. I don't care how comfortable it is. You literally let it get rained on. You know? You buy it from a store, and then you bring it inside for a second just to take it out to the backyard and leave it there. And it's too expensive. It's crazy. In fact, when the outdoor furniture is inside, that's when you know it's bad. When I was living with some friends in college, their lawn chairs were the chairs. And I was like, we in a bad situation. We're not doing well. You got the patio furniture in front of the TV. We about to die tomorrow. Whew. Yeah. You know, it's bad. It's bad, and it shouldn't be this bad. You know, you work, you pay your taxes. Things should come back to benefit you, and it's still that there's a narrative that's going on that's got all of us really going after and arguing with each other, as if there's limited resources, as if there's limited money, as if there's limited opportunity, and we know there's not. We know that there's actually plenty to go around, even with the hundreds of millions of us that are in this country. There's plenty to go around because we know how much billionaires have, because they make it known how much they have, you know? Like you see how much land they own, and you're like, that is a lot of people could live there. That's crazy. Or you know that CEO that said he wanted to own all the water. It's like, that's something you keep to yourself. What a sociopathic thing to say. Oh, I want all the water. You can't even drink it. What's wrong with you? That's what kills me. It's like people think that it's solely government. People think that it's their job. They think it's not. I promise it's not. And what really burdens me, what keeps me up at night, is that these people are siphoning all this money. They siphon it from the government. They get benefits from the government. They get tax cuts from the government. They siphon all this money. They siphon your wealth from you. They siphon it in wages by the fact that they don't increase. They siphon it off of like shrinkflation when they act like they cry poor and then they charge you more for less. They siphon all this money, all to what end? To have a few people have all that money. All of that money, more money than anyone will ever need in their lifetime. And you know it because they don't spend it. They siphon all of this money out. They are literally parasitic. And then they dress like me. That's so crazy. You have all the money in the world and you look like me. What are you doing? That's so crazy. Oh, it doesn't have to be this way. And I know sometimes you can feel powerless, especially when the big thing is happening, when the big thing is just going, you know. But with a movement towards any action that is based in the people's wishes, it has to come to fruition. In any instance. And you see it all over the world. You see people rise up in whatever form it takes to make their voices heard. And it's still very much possible. I know that there's a narrative out there that you're like a cog, that there's nothing you can do, and that you might as well just scrounge up as many pennies as you can to get by, and that'll be the best you can ask out of life. You know? It's to the point now where even people who cross over that $1 million threshold, they enter that tax bracket, they still feel that way. You could make $500,000. You could have $300,000 saved up, and you might sell something within your company, make another $200,000. You might cross that $1 million threshold, even by just a little bit, and still be like, I'm barely getting by. And people roll their eyes at that. They scoff at that. But the way that things are set up, unless you are uber rich, it's very easy to drop right out of that tax bracket. None of that is certain. You know, small business owners, some of them could be considered millionaires, but they'll tell you, they're like, my actual business and the people that I care for, the employees that I employ that depend on me for their benefits, for their livelihood. It's like we are month to month, right? So this structure doesn't end at just taking care of yourself. And it's why everybody, to the best of our ability, we have to be looking at the whole. The way that they play it is the way that benefits them every single time. Someone who's already a billionaire would love for you to just try to be like me. You can do it if you work hard enough. That's the narrative out there. They don't talk about how many government benefits they get, how many tax cuts they get, that they were born rich. They don't let any of that into the story because it would kind of ruin the whole thing. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's literally it's up to you, because we're already there. We're already in a place where I don't see how things are just going to get better by themselves. People are putting burritos on layaway. That's insane. That's so crazy. There are apps now that they come to you and they're like, hey, we'll let you finance your lunch, dog. You know, pay $3 now, we got you. And they do. They have you. And they don't let go. And before you know it, it's been a month, and that burrito that was $12 when you didn't have it is $65 now when you're done paying for it. And it wasn't worth it. And it's siphoned more from you. The things that weren't already taken. They can take your wealth. They're taking it now. They cannot take your worth. If you know your worth, if you remember your worth, and you fight for it every day, and you fight for it with who you vote for, you go to your town halls and you speak to them and you let them know, we hired you. You work for us. We pay our taxes. Go tell them that this is done. It doesn't have to be this way. We can demand more, and the thing that we're demanding is not some sort of handout. We're demanding our work back to us in proportion for how hard we've worked. These people believe, they genuinely believe that they built this company up by themselves, as if there's some idea truly as a self-made man. It's like, even if you built a company and you ship the things to the people and they love your product and they want more of it, and you think you're such a genius, there are people driving that truck. There are people packing up those packages. And then there's the road that you didn't build. You know? In what world should it be like this? That's crazy. And then the narrative gets put back on us that we deserve these pennies, that we deserve such a small share of the thing that we helped build. Look around. Really look around when you walk around your city. Really look around when you travel. Wherever you go, in America, no matter who you are, we built this. We built this together. We built it, and I'm not even saying that these like titans of industry don't hold a part in it. I'm not discounting someone having an idea and through ingenuity bring it to fruition to the point where they employ people, to the point where people depend on them. But there are responsibilities that come with that sort of thing. You know, I wanted to start like a candy company, and I was like, nah, I'm actually going to be a terrible boss. I'd be a terrible boss, you know. I'd be in there in the candy factory eating all the chocolate, making myself sick, and then when people come to the factory to look at our chocolate, they'd be like, the boss is in the bathroom throwing up again because he's a child that can't stop himself. And that's why I didn't start a business, because I was like, you know, there are other people that are better at it. It's tough, you know. You shouldn't be put in a position where you got to put barbecue that you eat in the dark on layaway. Like that's
Put your hands together. Start clapping right now for the
so, I've had quite a week still trying to distill all of my thoughts and feelings around the presidential debate. Okay. I live in New York, and in New York there are a lot of parks, and in some of those parks, you'll see, it's like an iconic thing about New York, that there'll be somebody playing chess in the park, right? And sometimes they're just two old men playing chess or checkers. Sometimes it's somebody that's like, hey, I'll play anybody, I'm practicing for a tournament. And a lot of times it's somebody who's playing chess, but they're playing for like money. Like, you put 5 down, I bet you can't beat me, and I'll put 5 down, and we'll see. And then, you know, speed chess as well. They got the clock next to them, bow, right? And I've played before, and I'm not good at chess. And it's crazy how fast you can lose. Sometimes I'll be playing chess in the park, and he'll be like checkmate, but it sounds like there's no way. Then I'll grab, I have a chess book. And I'll look at the board and look at the book. Damn, okay. That wasn't that many moves. I don't know what else I was supposed to do. You know, and I don't know, feel like watching the election and watching the debate felt a lot like that. It felt like bad chess moves. We've watched a lot of debates that Trump has been in, and we've gone 2 for 2 this year with having remarkably historic debates, both of which were like, you know what I mean? Like, you get done and you're like, felt like I was up there. And there was a moment in the first debate that was echoed in this debate. There was a moment back when Trump was debating Biden, and I've talked about it before, where there's a second there where Trump looked at Biden, and for a split second, he wasn't trying to be president. He wasn't even trying to debate. He was literally like, hey, he good? Like, No, y'all, stop, 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 stop. Is he good though? It was a different tactic than we've ever seen before from Kamala debating Trump because she debated him the way that I think a lot of us might debate him. You know? I'm not gonna speak for anybody in here, anybody listening to me. I don't know if you're like a political analyst. I don't know how involved you are with politics, but she debated him the way that I think we debate him sometimes in our heads, which is to be like, what did you just? Because most politicians are not, hear me out. Most politicians don't behave like people. When I say that, I want you to understand, I mean, maybe they care about people, maybe they care about getting something good done, maybe they care about forwarding their agenda, but they don't react to things and they don't behave like people, like just regular people. It's why they feel fake, is because they can't just be like, oh, shit. You see, man? Do you see what I mean? And it's why people from 2015 on have gravitated towards Trump, because he feels like they would react. Like he will say, oh, shit. But then you look at someone like Kamala, and she's a very polished person, very accomplished person. But in that debate, she was having moments that for the first time ever felt like moments that we might have up there. Does that make sense? Like when Trump would debate other Republicans leading up to the nomination, or when Trump would debate Hillary or Biden, there was a sense of like, wait, are you not going to say anything about the thing that he just said just now? Why are you staring forward, acting like what you heard wasn't wrong? Why are you like looking to the moderators to fact check? There's nothing more exhausting than when someone who could be a good player is looking at the ref to be like, help. You know what I mean? You say he's lying right now. Like he just lied now, so say it now. Don't later be like, and then they didn't even help. Do you see what I mean? We've watched it happen. We've watched, he was in those debates. Republicans did not know what to do with this man. He was over there telling Ted Cruz to his face, your wife is ugly. And because Ted Cruz doesn't move like a person, doesn't react like a person, he didn't slap him in his face in that moment. No, Trump has shown that the American people were ready and willing for someone unorthodox. You know how much he would have surged in the polls if he had walked over from his podium and was like, what? And then slapped Trump in his face. I know at least his wife would have liked it. You know? I don't even remember what he said about Marco Rubio. I just remember Marco Rubio looking littler and littler every day. Marco Rubio started showing up. I was like, is he 4'8"? Nobody knew what to do. Journalists didn't know what to do. Journalists were like, well, you can't say that about the press, but he did it. What are you gonna do? You know? And so now you watch this debate with Kamala, and we've all heard it and probably said it ourselves, that she baited him a lot, but he bit every time. And this is my thing with that, is that decorum aside, don't you want someone representing you that could maybe let something slide? You know, it's got to be tough to be in the public eye. It's got to be tough to be and feel slighted all the time by lots of people that you meet that you don't know and they hate you. But also, you're here to do a job. You're here to do a job on the highest level. So a lot of people won't like you. No matter who wins as president, there will be people who are very upset. Do you really want someone who could be so easily irked? Kamala said, nope.
Recent discoveries in the Amazon rainforest have revealed complex geometric patterns visible only from above. These precisely aligned structures, dating back over 2,000 years, suggest ancient civilizations possessed sophisticated engineering knowledge that challenges our understanding of pre-Columbian societies. How did they achieve such precision? Paisley Caves. If you ever find yourself deep in the high desert of southern Oregon, way past the last gas station, beyond the quiet hills and open stretches of sagebrush and sun-baked dust, you might stumble on something that doesn't look like much. Just a few shallow caves carved into the side of a cliff. No signs, no fences, easy to overlook. But those small caves, known as the Paisley Caves, are one of the most important and mysterious archaeological sites in North America. Not because of what's sitting there now, but because of what was buried underneath, hidden for thousands of years. Back in the 1930s, an amateur archaeologist wandered out here. Curious, he poked around, hoping to find signs that ancient people might have taken shelter in the caves. He found some old bones and charcoal, but nothing groundbreaking. The real discovery didn't come until the early 2000s, when a full-scale excavation kicked off under Dr. Dennis Jenkins from the University of Oregon. What they uncovered didn't just change the story of the Paisley Caves, it challenged everything we thought we knew about the first people in America. The team wasn't looking to stir up controversy. They were doing the usual slow and steady work, digging layer by layer, logging artifacts, collecting soil samples. But then they found something strange, something unpleasant, at least at first glance. Fossilized human feces. Coprolites, to use the scientific word. Yeah, not exactly the kind of find that makes headlines, but it should have, because what was inside those ancient remains told a story no one expected. When researchers tested the DNA, it came back human, and the age, over 14,000 years old. That's more than 1,000 years older than what used to be the widely accepted beginning of human life in the Americas, the Clovis culture. For decades, most archaeologists believed that the Clovis people, named after the distinctive stone spear points first found in New Mexico, were the first true Americans. They supposedly crossed from Siberia into Alaska around 13,000 years ago and spread southward through an ice-free corridor. But the evidence from Paisley flipped that script. Here were humans in Oregon, far south of the ice sheets, living their lives before the Clovis people even appeared. Not just passing through either. These early residents were hunting, cooking, making tools. There were stone blades, animal bones, fire pits, even ancient fiber sandals. It wasn't just a fluke, it was a window into a long-lost world. Of course, not everyone accepted it at first. Some critics thought the DNA must have been contaminated. Others argued the remains could have shifted downward through the soil layers, making them appear older than they really were. But Jenkins and his team didn't back down. They pointed to the volcanic ash and tightly packed layers of sediment that sealed the coprolites in place. They brought in new protocols to prevent contamination. Independent labs confirmed the findings. Eventually, the resistance started to crack. More scientists looked at the data and admitted something important had been found here. And that's where the bigger mystery begins. Who were these people? They didn't leave behind written records. No cave paintings. No grand monuments or burials. Just fragments of life. Stone tools. Ash. Bits of food. And the oldest known human DNA on the continent. What's fascinating is that their tools don't resemble the high-tech spear points of the Clovis people. They're simpler, more local in design. Some researchers think these early Oregonians didn't come through an inland ice corridor at all. Instead, they may have paddled down the Pacific coastline in small boats, hugging the foggy shorelines, living off shellfish and kelp forests. That theory's gaining ground now, that the first Americans were seafarers, not trekkers. Maybe these people stopped at Paisley for a night, or maybe they stayed, settle in the caves for a season, maybe longer. The caves themselves aren't very deep. They're more like overhangs about 30 feet high, looking out across what used to be a lake. Recent discoveries in the Amazon rainforest have revealed complex geometric patterns visible only from above. These precisely aligned structures, dating back over 2,000 years, suggest ancient civilizations possessed sophisticated engineering knowledge that challenges our understanding of pre-Columbian societies. How did they achieve such precision? There's no visitor center, no big signs explaining what happened here. Just a dirt road that eventually ends in a metal gate. The caves are open to the public, but not easy to reach. If you go, it's likely you'll be alone, and that makes it easier to imagine what it was like back then. A small group of people gathered around a fire 14,000 years ago, sharing food and stories in a language we'll never hear. To the indigenous tribes in this region, none of this is surprising. Many of their oral traditions already spoke of ancestors living in these lands long before archaeologists were willing to consider it. So in a way, science is just catching up to what native communities have been saying all along. Other ancient sites have come to light in recent decades. Meadowcroft Rock Shelter in Pennsylvania, Monte Verde in Chile, the Gault site in Texas. But Paisley Cave stands out because of that rare human DNA locked in the earth for thousands of years. It's not just tools or bones. It's personal. It's someone's life, frozen in time. And yet, for all we've learned, the caves still leave us with more questions. Where did these people go? Did they merge with later cultures, or vanish without a trace? Why haven't we found more sites like this? And how is it, in a country so full of research and technology, that we're still in the dark about something as basic as when humans first arrived? That's what makes Paisley Cave so powerful. It's not just a dig site, it's a challenge. A reminder that history isn't locked in textbooks. It's still being uncovered. Sometimes in the least likely places. Sometimes in something as humble and weird as ancient poop. If you ever make it out near the little town of Paisley, Oregon, take the detour, drive the bumpy road, bring some water, wear good shoes, and give yourself a little time. When you step inside one of those caves, you'll be standing in the middle of a mystery that's still unfolding. And if you pause long enough, maybe you'll feel it too, that quiet presence of the past, gently nudging us to keep asking, keep digging, and keep listening. Because some stories haven't been lost, they've just been waiting. Fort Rock Cave. Out in the middle of Oregon's high desert, where the land stretches flat and dry under a wide sky, you'll see something unexpected. Rising out of the sagebrush like some ancient ruin is a massive ring of jagged rock. At first glance, it almost looks man-made, like the crumbling wall of an old fortress. That's Fort Rock. And just a short distance west, tucked into a small limestone outcrop, there's a quiet little cave that, without much fanfare, helped rewrite what we thought we knew about the earliest people to live in North America. The cave doesn't look like much from the outside. No towering entrance, no carvings, just a dusty hollow in a desert cliff. But step inside, or even just stand at the mouth of it, and you're standing at the edge of a story that reaches back 10,000 years. It's called Fort Rock Cave, and what was found here changed everything. Back in 1938, a young archaeologist named Luther Cressman, working out of the University of Oregon, came to explore this cave. He wasn't randomly digging. Local stories hinted that the area might have been used by ancient people, maybe as shelter or a seasonal camp. So Cressman and his team started excavating carefully, peeling back layers of dust and ash. What they uncovered wasn't treasure or weapons or bones, it was sandals. Dozens of them. Not rough scraps of plant material either. These were beautifully made sandals woven from sagebrush bark. Some were flat, others had toe straps. But all of them showed skill, real craftsmanship. These weren't just thrown together in a hurry. Someone took the time to make them right. And when Cressman had the sandals tested for age, the results stunned everyone. At least 9,000 years old. Later testing pushed that number closer to 10,000. Think about that. These sandals were made around 8,000 BCE. That's before the Great Pyramids, before Stonehenge, before agriculture had even really taken root across most of the world. These are some of the oldest known shoes on Earth, and they weren't buried in some perfect display. They were found beneath layers of volcanic ash, likely from the eruption of Mount Mazama, the same eruption that eventually formed Crater Lake. That ash helped seal the cave and preserve the contents, like a prehistoric time capsule. The discovery of those sandals changed everything archaeologists thought they knew about early life in this part of the continent. Before then, most experts believed people had only arrived in the Oregon region a few thousand years ago. Maybe they were nomads passing through. But the sandals, so well made, so clearly designed for walking long distances across dry terrain, told a different story. Whoever made them wasn't just surviving, they were living. They had technique, patience, a deep understanding of their environment, and the care put into those sandals suggests something more than necessity. It points to culture. Alongside the sandals, archaeologists also found stone tools, animal bones, and fire remains. All signs of a people who weren't just wandering but settling in, at least seasonally. These weren't random stops on a migration route. This was home or something like it. The cave itself is small, about 50 feet deep and 40 feet wide, with a low ceiling that forces you to stoop a little. The floor is soft and dusty, and once you step inside, the desert heat fades and everything gets quiet. You can almost hear the past in there. It's easy to imagine a scene, a family gathered near the entrance, working sagebrush bark into long strands, twisting them into cords, someone preparing food, someone tending a fire, kids playing in the dust, and somewhere in the back, those kind of place you'll stumble across by accident. The cave sits on protected land and is only accessible through guided tours arranged by Oregon State Parks. That's for good reason. Many of the original artifacts, including the sandals, are now stored at the University of Oregon Museum of Natural and Cultural History, where they're preserved and studied. Still, even standing outside the cave has weight. The surrounding desert is wide and silent. Fort Rock looms in the distance, looking like it could collapse or lift off at any moment. In reality, it's the ancient shoreline of a massive Ice Age lake. Thousands of years ago, this whole region was underwater. What's now sagebrush and dust used to be home to birds, reeds, fish, and freshwater. The people who lived here would have seen a very different landscape, but their story isn't completely lost. It's just quiet, hidden in the details. In sandals that lasted 10 millennia, in fire rings buried under ash, in simple tools left behind, never meant to be found. And there's something else worth saying. The Klamath and Northern Paiute peoples, indigenous communities who have lived in this region for generations, have long told stories of ancestors in these lands since time immemorial. These discoveries don't contradict that. If anything, they validate it. Archaeology is finally beginning to catch up to the stories these communities have carried all along. So why isn't Fort Rock Cave more famous? Part of it is its location. The nearest town, Silver Lake, is tiny. There's no highway sign pointing the way. You have to really want to find it. And when you do, it's not flashy. There's no grand visitor center, no interactive museum, just a dusty trail and a locked gate that opens only on scheduled tours. And yet, what was found here is more than just an artifact. It's a message. These sandals weren't built to last forever. They were made for walking, for crossing rough desert trails, for daily life. And yet somehow, they outlived everything. The climate, the culture, the language of the people completely. But Fort Rock Cave gave us something rare, not just proof that people were here, but a glimpse into how they lived, how they adapted, how they created. It's not a grand monument. It's not carved in stone. It's a pair of woven sandals, fragile, practical, beautiful in their own quiet way. And maybe that's what makes it all the more powerful. This wasn't history written to impress. It was history lived, day by day, step by step. So if you ever find yourself in Oregon's high desert, standing at the edge of that strange rock ring, take a moment. Look past the dust, past the silence. Imagine the lake that used to shimmer in the sun, the voices that once filled the cave, the hands that twisted bark into something useful. And remember, sometimes the oldest stories aren't in books or stone. Sometimes they're told by what was left behind. Crater Lake Legends. The first time you see Crater Lake, it doesn't feel quite real. The color alone makes you pause. It's this deep, unreal blue, that looks like it's been dialed up by someone playing with saturation. The water is still, glassy, cold, and it just sits there, quiet and contained inside the jagged rim of a long-dead volcano. No rivers run in, none run out. It's just there, like a secret the Earth forgot to hide. But long before the roads, the tour buses, or the smartphone photos from the rim, this place held a very different meaning. For the Klamath people, Crater Lake wasn't just a natural wonder. It was sacred, dangerous, alive. It had a story, a violent one. And even now, standing on the edge, that old energy is hard to ignore. The Klamath Nation has lived in this part of Oregon for thousands of years, long before any written history. Their stories go back further than we can truly measure. And in those stories, Crater Lake wasn't always a lake. Once it was a towering mountain, Mount Mazama, rising high above the landscape, proud and powerful. But Mazama wasn't just a mountain. According to Klamath legend, it was the home of Lau, the spirit of the underworld. He lived beneath the earth, hidden from the world, but he would sometimes rise to look out across the land. One day, Lau saw a beautiful Klamath woman and fell in love with her. He wanted her for himself. But she refused him, chose to stay with her people rather than go with the god of the underworld. Lau didn't take that well. In his fury, he rose from the mountain and rained fire down on the land. Forests burned, rivers boiled, the sky turned black. The people, terrified, cried out to Skell, the spirit of the sky who lived on Mount Shasta to the south, and Skell heard them. What followed was a battle between gods. Leo and Skell hurled fire and rock at one another across the heavens. Mountains trembled, the earth cracked open, fire rained from the sky. In the end, Skell overcame Leo and drove him back underground. As punishment, he destroyed the peak of Mount Mazama, collapsing it in on itself, sealing Leo below for eternity. Over the centuries, rain and snow filled the hollow left behind. That, the Klamath say, is how Crater Lake was born. And what's incredible is that modern science doesn't disagree. Geologists now tell us that around 7,700 years ago, Mount Mazama really did explode violently. It was one of the largest volcanic eruptions in North America's history. The blast was massive, over 100 times more powerful than Mount St. Helens in 1980. Ash fell as far away as Alberta and the Midwest. When it was over, the mountain's top had collapsed into a deep basin, which eventually filled with water. That basin became Crater Lake. The depth of it is almost hard to believe, nearly 2,000 feet. It's the deepest lake in the U.S., and one of the clearest and cleanest in the world. No streams feed it, and none drain from it. It's a perfectly self-contained body of water, kept alive only by rain and snow. But for the Klamath, it wasn't just geology, it was memory, a spiritual event, a story not just about fire and mountains, but about choices, power, and balance. And here's the thing, it wasn't just a myth told after the fact. Archaeologists have found evidence that early Klamath people were living in the area at the time of the eruption. Ash layers in ancient campsites confirm it. That means the story of Lau and Skell may be a living memory, passed down for almost 8,000 years. And when you're standing at the edge of the lake, it's easy to believe it. The rim is sharp, high, and jagged, nearly 2,000 feet above the water in places. The air is thinner, quieter. Even on windy days, the lake's surface is unnervingly still. You can feel something ancient here, as if the place is holding its breath. And then there's Wizard Island. It rises from the western side of the lake, a perfect little volcano inside the larger one, covered in pines and black rock. It's what's left of a later eruption. In the legends, it's where Skell stood after sealing Leo away, watching over the lake to make sure the dark spirit never escaped. Other stories say it's where Lao still waits, trapped and angry, stirring beneath the waves. People today still talk about the lake like it's alive. Some say the weather changes too fast. Others say it's the silence it presses in around you. Hikers report strange dreams. Fishermen talk about seeing shadows beneath the surface, shapes that don't move like fish. It's all anecdotal, sure, but it adds up. There's also the mystery of the old man of the lake. It's a 30-foot log, just a tree trunk really, that's been floating upright in the lake for over 100 years, perfectly vertical, slowly spinning, unaffected by wind or waves. It doesn't drift to shore, it doesn't sink. No one knows exactly why. Some scientists chalk it up to perfect balance and preservation. Others see it as something else, maybe a spirit marker, a totem, a silent watcher. Even the rangers tend to leave it alone. Then there are the disappearances. Crater Lake has a long, strange history of people vanishing. Some of it makes sense. Steep cliffs, sudden drops, cold water. But not all. Hikers have gone missing without a trace. Planes have crashed near the lake and were never found. One man was last seen standing near the rim. No body, no gear, nothing, just gone. Some blame the terrain. Others point to magnetic anomalies, areas where compasses stop working or instruments go haywire. And then of course there are those who say Lao is still down there, waiting. Whether you believe the legends or not, there's no denying the atmosphere. Crater Lake isn't just scenic, it feels heavy, ancient, like it remembers. Today, visiting is easy. There's a well-maintained national park, paved roads, clear signs. In summer, you can take boat tours out to Wizard Island. There's a visitor center, lodges, trails with sweeping views. On a clear day, you can even see Mount Shasta far off in the distance, the other peak in that ancient battle. But if you go, try to find a quiet spot, set down the camera, turn off your phone, sit for a minute and just watch. Look at the rim, the way it curls around the lake like a broken crown. Watch how the color shifts from dark cobalt to almost glowing blue. Listen to the wind. Maybe you won't feel anything strange. Or maybe just for a second, you'll feel that old story stirring. The battle in the sky, the fire, the fall, the silence that came after. Because Crater Lake isn't just a lake, it's a memory, a scar, a shrine. And whether told in legend or written in ash, its story isn't over. It's just beneath the surface. The Oregon Vortex. Just off a quiet stretch of road near Gold Hill, Oregon, there's a strange little place hidden in the trees. It's not big, it's not flashy, but for decades, it's left people wondering if the laws of nature are as solid as we think. This is the Oregon Vortex, and once you've stepped inside, it's hard to shake the feeling that something isn't quite right. Here, people appear to change height just by switching places. Balls roll uphill. Folks lean at bizarre angles without tipping over. It's weird, and it's been messing with people's heads for generations. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a small patch of slanted forest. A couple of crooked shacks, a gravel path, some old boards and props. But there's something about it, something you feel more than see. Let's rewind a bit and look at how it all started. Back in 1904, a gold assay office was built on the site. Just a simple wooden cabin. Over time, it shifted and settled so unevenly that now it leans like it's about to give up and fall over. People started calling it the House of Mystery. Locals working nearby began noticing odd things. Animals, especially horses, refused to walk through a certain part of the land. Compasses acted strange. People standing side by side looked like they were different heights, even though they weren't. They'd switch places, and suddenly the shorter one was taller. In the 1930s, a man named John Litster bought the property. He was a Scottish engineer and geologist, and he wasn't just looking to run a roadside attraction. He thought something real was going on, something science hadn't quite caught up to yet. He called it a vortex, a kind of energy field that twisted space in weird ways. Litster started running public tours and doing experiments. He took it seriously, measuring angles, writing everything down, trying to figure it out. His notes and his passion for the place are a big reason the vortex still exists today. And the strange part, the weird stuff still happens. Take the gravity hill effect. There's a spot where it looks like the ground slopes downhill, but when you roll a ball or pour water, it moves uphill. You can watch it happen over and over, and it still doesn't make sense. Then there's the height change illusion. Two people stand side by side. One clearly looks taller. They switch places, and now the other one does. It happens even on spots that seem flat. You'll catch yourself checking the ground to see what's going on.
It's disorienting.
Inside the old cabin, things get even stranger. The tilt of the building messes with your balance so much that people can lean forward, almost like they're about to fall, but somehow stay upright. Some say it feels like being pushed or pulled. Others report feeling dizzy, or like the air is heavier. You're just off balance in every way. Now, the official explanation from the folks who run the site is that there's a spherical force field about 165 feet across that bends gravity, light, and perception. No one's been able to scientifically prove that, but when you're standing in it, it doesn't sound quite as crazy as it might from the outside. Skeptics, of course, have plenty to say. Most scientists chalk it all up to optical illusions and carefully constructed buildings. The slanted cabin tricks your sense of direction. Forced perspective messes with how your brain reads size and distance. Your inner ear gets confused, your eyes try to make sense of the tilt, and your brain just fails a little. And that does explain a lot of it, but not all of it. Some visitors, including surveyors and even a few physicists, have pointed out that compasses really do behave oddly here. And the height change effect? It happens even in spots outside the cabin, on what should be level ground. So is it all just clever design? Or is there something else happening? Something magnetic, geological, energetic, that we just don't understand yet. There are theories. Some say the vortex sits on a natural magnetic anomaly, possibly caused by minerals underground or nearby fault lines. There's a school of thought that geomagnetic fields under certain conditions can mess with our perception or balance. That might explain the dizziness or strange sensations some people feel. Others take things a bit further. They talk about ley lines, energy grids, dimensional overlaps, more spiritual or even paranormal ideas. And while those ideas tend to stretch beyond what science can back up, the fact that the vortex doesn't have a complete explanation gives them just enough room to survive. Interestingly, the Oregon vortex isn't the only place like this. There are other mystery spots across the US in California, Michigan, North Carolina, even parts of Canada. They share the same kinds of features: tilted houses, height illusions, balls rolling uphill. Some people take that as proof that it's all a visual trick, something you can build anywhere. Others wonder if there's a deeper connection between these spots. And thanks to John Litzter's scientific approach, it has a sort of credibility that others don't. He wasn't just trying to fool people. He genuinely believed this place was worth studying. Today, if you visit, you'll get a guided tour. The staff know the routine well. They've got the jokes, the demos, the wow moments down pat. They'll show you the height illusion, roll marbles on tilted boards, invite you to lean against walls that feel like they're pulling you sideways. It's fun, it's playful, but there's always this sense that they're not giving you the full answer. They leave room for the mystery, maybe because they don't fully understand it either, and maybe that's why people keep coming. Not just for the photos or the weird effects, but for the feeling, the part you can't explain. For some, this is the first time they really stop and question their assumptions about the world. It's easy to say it's just a trick of the eyes, but when you're standing there and feeling it, it's harder to be so sure. There's a term some people use for places like this: thin places. Spots where the boundaries between what we understand and what we don't understand feel especially thin, where reality has a little give to it, and the vortex feels like one of those. From a sensory perspective, it's subtle but striking. The trees lean at strange angles. The light filters through the branches in a sharp, slanted way. The air is cooler, quieter. Your footsteps crunch along gravel while your mind tries to make sense of what your body's experiencing. Laughter and chatter echo from the tour guide and other guests, but under all of it, there's this little hum of uncertainty. And when you leave, you'll probably keep thinking about it. Not just what you saw, but what you felt. That brief moment where your body didn't believe your brain, or vice versa. Is it all just clever design? Probably. Is it something more? Maybe. And that's the magic of the Oregon vortex. It doesn't give you answers. It just opens the door and lets the weirdness speak for itself. And sometimes, that's all it needs to do. Nekani Mountain Treasure and Carvings. If you've ever driven along the Oregon coast, there's a spot just north of Manzanita that makes you slow down, not just because of the sharp turns, but because the view catches your breath. The road squeezes between the forested cliffs on one side and a sheer drop to the ocean on the other. That's Nekani Mountain. It's not the tallest mountain around, but it has a presence. Dark, rugged cliffs, moss-covered trees, mist that rolls in suddenly and vanishes just as fast. On a clear day, you can see for miles blue water stretching out toward the horizon, the curve of the earth just barely visible if you squint. But what really makes Nekani stand out isn't the view, it's what might be hidden deep beneath it. Locals have whispered about this place for generations. Stories of buried treasure, not just any treasure, Spanish gold, and not just hidden, but possibly guarded. By what, you ask? Depends who you talk to. Some say ancient curses. Others believe there are clues carved into stone, or even spirits watching over the mountain. The legend begins all the way back in the 1600s during the age of Spanish exploration. At the time, Spanish ships called galleons were sailing the Pacific regularly. They traveled between Mexico and the Philippines, and occasionally made their way farther north along the coast we now call Oregon. According to one version of the story, one of these ships ended up off the coast near Nekani Mountain, maybe damaged by a storm, maybe just off course. A group of men supposedly came ashore carrying a heavy chest. They hiked it up into the woods, buried it, and tried to make sure it would never be disturbed. That's where the story takes a darker turn. Some say the crew killed one of their own, a person described in most tellings as either an African or native slave, and buried him with the treasure, a human sacrifice. Not just to hide the gold, but to place a spirit protector over it. It's the kind of tale that sounds too brutal to be true. but it's been part of Oregon folklore for hundreds of years. Before the Spanish ever arrived, though, Neahkani was already seen as powerful. The local Tillamook people considered it sacred. The name itself is often translated as place of the god, or home of spirits. It wasn't just a mountain, it was a place you approached with respect. Some of their stories spoke of it as a thin place, where the barrier between this world and the next felt fragile. So when strange markings started showing up on rocks around the mountain, people began to wonder. Over the years, hikers, treasure hunters, and curious locals have reported seeing carvings in stone crosses, arrows, geometric patterns. Some found rocks that looked like they'd been cut or placed deliberately. There were even reports of Latin words etched into stone, or numbers written in an unfamiliar style. One carving that gets mentioned a lot is a large rock, shaped sort of like a beehive, with strange symbols scratched into its surface. Others have found trees with unusual marks, or shallow pits that look like someone tried digging long ago and gave up. And many did try. In the 1800s and early 1900s, people became obsessed with the idea that Spanish treasure was buried somewhere on Neckline. Locals, travelers, even engineers got involved. They dug shafts straight down into the mountain, some over 40 feet deep. A few tunnels collapsed, others filled with water. Some tools rusted overnight, as if the mountain itself didn't want to give up its secrets. There were rumors of booby traps, of charred wood layers deep underground, like maybe something had once been burned to hide or protect whatever was buried there. But no gold was ever found. And every time someone got close, or thought they did, something went wrong. A sudden injury, a rock slide, tools failing for no reason. Those setbacks only added to the legend. People started to believe the treasure was cursed, or that something spiritual was guarding it. Of course, there's no hard proof. Spanish records from the 1600s are incomplete, and no one's ever pulled up a verified artifact from the mountain. But that hasn't stopped people from looking. Even today, you'll sometimes spot someone off trail with a metal detector, or see small piles of stones that look a little too intentional. Not everyone's up there for the view. Then there's the other part of the mystery. Less about gold, more about something harder to explain. Locals have long said that just before sunset, if the light hits the cliffs at the right angle, a face appears. Not just any face, a profile carved by shadow, a head, a nose, a watching eye. Some say it's just the shape of the rocks and the light playing tricks. Others believe it's a sign, left behind by those who hid the treasure. Some people swear they've seen it. Others say it vanishes the moment you try to take a photo. It might sound like something out of a campfire story, but when you're standing there in person on the edge of the cliff, with the ocean crashing below and the wind howling through the trees, it's hard not to feel something, a sense of being watched, a feeling that the land remembers more than it shows. And maybe that's the real heart of this legend. It's not just a Spanish mystery, or an indigenous sacred place, or a treasure map waiting to be solved. It's all of that, layered over itself, like mist that never fully clears. When you hike Neahkani today, it's quiet. The trail winds through thick coastal forest. You'll pass moss-covered rocks, soft ground padded with pine needles, and trees that creak in the wind. Depending on the season, you might be completely alone. As you climb higher, the forest thins out, and then suddenly, you're at the top. The view is enormous. Beaches stretching into the distance, the Pacific Ocean sprawling endlessly below, the little town of Manzanita far beneath you. It's beautiful, but there's also something heavy about it. Like the mountain is holding something close, just out of reach. You won't find any signs pointing to treasure. No big X on the ground, but you might find something else. An old carving, a pile of rocks, a strange quiet that hangs in the air. Is there gold buried here? It's possible. Spanish ships did sail these waters, and the markings people find, real or imagined, do show up in just enough places to make you wonder. But maybe the real treasure is the story itself. The way this mountain draws people in, the way it makes you stop, look around, and feel like you're standing at the edge of something ancient and unfinished. A place where the line between myth and memory gets a little blurry. A mountain that doesn't need to explain itself. It just waits. Willamette Meteorite. Out in the rolling green fields of Oregon's Willamette Valley, there's a mystery that doesn't quite belong. It's not a tree, or a river, or part of the rich farmland. It's made of iron and nickel. It weighs over 15 tons. And it didn't come from Earth. It came from space. This is the Willamette Meteorite, the largest meteorite ever found in North America, and easily one of the strangest objects in Oregon's history. It's unimaginably old, older than the forests, older than the mountains. And its story, from the moment it arrived to where it sits today, is full of surprises, conflict, and questions we still don't fully understand. Let's start with how it was found. In 1902, a man named Ellis Hughes was walking through the woods near what's now West Lynn, Oregon. He wasn't a scientist, just a settler trying to make a life for his family. One day, deep in the trees, he came across a massive, twisted chunk of metal sticking out of the ground. It looked like nothing he'd ever seen. The surface was full of pits and strange grooves, shaped almost like melted wax or the skin of another world. Hughes quickly realized this thing wasn't ordinary, and maybe it was worth something. So in one of the more bizarre chapters of Oregon history, he decided to steal it. He and his teenage son built a homemade cart, and over the course of several weeks, tried to roll the 15-ton meteorite more than half a mile across uneven forest terrain to their own property. No roads, no heavy machinery, just muscle, grit, and pure stubbornness. Word eventually got out, and it turns out Hughes didn't own the land where he found it. That belonged to the Oregon Iron and Steel Company. They took him to court, won the case, and took possession of the meteorite. A few years later, the company sold it to the American Museum of Natural History in New York City, where it still sits today. If you want to see it, you've got to go across the country. That fact still stings for a lot of people in Oregon, but the story goes way deeper than 1902. Geologists estimate the Willamette meteorite is over 10,000 years old, and here's the weird part, there's no impact crater anywhere near where it was found. No hole in the ground, no signs of a collision, just this enormous piece of space metal sitting quietly in the woods. So how did it get there? To understand that, you have to go back to the last ice age. During that time, a series of massive floods called the Missoula floods ripped across what's now the Pacific Northwest. These weren't small events, these were floods on a scale hard to imagine. Walls of water hundreds of feet high, crashing down valleys, reshaping the land. The theory is that the Willamette meteorite originally landed somewhere much farther north, maybe Canada or Montana. Then during one of those floods, it was picked up by a giant raft of ice and carried hundreds of miles south. When the ice melted, it dropped the meteorite in the Willamette Valley. It didn't crash here, it floated. But even before Hughes came across it, people already knew the meteorite. People who understood its presence in a much different way. The Clackamas Chinook people, a branch of the Kalapuya tribe, called it Tomanoos, a word that roughly means heavenly visitor or sky person. To them, this wasn't just a rock, it was sacred. They believed Tomanoos had spiritual power. They'd come to visit it, leave offerings. It was part of their story, part of their world. Not just something that fell from the sky, but something given. So when the meteorite was taken away, shipped to New York and put behind glass, it wasn't just a scientific specimen that was lost. It was a spiritual loss, a cultural one. And for decades, members of the tribe had no access to it. That changed in the year 2000. The Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon filed a legal claim to reconnect with Tomanons. They weren't asking to own it, exactly. They were asking for recognition, for the right to honor and maintain a relationship with something that had mattered to them for generations. After negotiations, a compromise was reached. The meteorite would stay in New York, but members of the Grand Ronde community would be allowed to visit it each year for private ceremonial use. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was something, a step toward healing, toward respect. And really, the Willamette meteorite lives in this in-between space, a place where science, history, and culture all overlap. It's a rock from space, but it's also a symbol of conflict, of reverence, of power, of how humans interact with the unknown. If you drive out to the original discovery site near West Lynn today, you might not even notice it. There's no crater, no grand display, just a quiet patch of trees, and a small stone marker off a rural road. Blink and you'll miss it. And maybe that's the most surreal part of this story. For thousands of years, this object, this iron giant just sat there, through ice, fire, flood, and forest. Long before cities, before borders, before anyone called this place Oregon. It watched the world change without moving an inch. Today, there's a life-size replica on display at the Museum of the Oregon Territory. You can walk around it, touch it, see the deep pits and jagged surface up close. It doesn't look like it belongs here, but somehow, it also feels like it does. Standing next to it, you can't help but feel small. You realize how long the universe has been doing its thing without us, how objects like this existed before we were born, and will be here long after we're gone. The Willamette meteorite isn't just a piece of space debris. It's a marker of deep time, a sacred symbol, a legal battle, a cultural wound, and in some ways, a quiet reconciliation. It also asks something simple but hard. Who gets to claim the past? Who gets to tell the story? And maybe, Like the rock itself, the answer isn't so easily moved. More than a century after it was first unearthed, the meteorite still draws people in. Scientists, tribal members, tourists, kids on field trips, curious wanderers, and they all seem to feel the same thing. Not fear, not even awe exactly, but something quieter, a kind of reverence, like they're standing in the presence of something impossibly old, and still watching.
I'll be honest with y'all though. I've stopped getting mad at white people who just call the cops on black people for no reason. I've stopped getting upset. I've started just retaliating. It's like now if I see a white person doing anything I don't like or understand, which is none of my business, but makes me uncomfortable, I just dial those 3 numbers. Yeah. I'll just be sitting in the park and just. Yeah, 911. She kissing the dog way too hard. This is absolutely unacceptable. This is all tongue out here. You need to hurry. It doesn't look like the dog into it. Please get here quickly. I'll be at the grocery store. I'll be checking out at the grocery store. And I'll be like a white guy in front of me. But he's not buying any food from the grocery store. He getting those weird non-food items that the grocery store sells. So it'll just be like a belt and a knife. I'm like, yeah, 911, please. He looked like Dahmer to begin with. Please hurry. I don't like the way his receipt looks. I've started just calling the cops on white people who I think are calling the cops on me. We just have a standoff. I'm like, well, I didn't dial first. She did, okay? Well, send one for her, send one for me, okay? They could just have a standoff. This might be too niche, but did y'all see the drama happening with the people that the movie The Blind Side is based off of? All right. If you don't know the story, I'll bring up to speed as quickly as possible. Basically, Blind Side is a movie from 2009 where Sandra Bullock won the Oscar for playing the greatest white woman that's ever lived. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it goes Joan of Arc, Amelia Earhart, this lady, okay? And in the movie, she drives up her car to what I can only describe as the biggest black child that's ever been, all right? He is supposed to be in school, but he looked like a 43rd grader. This is the grownest looking kid I've ever seen in my life. She drives up and he's like, oh, but like his shoulders got bigger when he turned. It was insane. And then she's like, come home with me, which historically, oh. But then he comes home with them, and then they're like, you should play football. And he does, and then he makes it into the NFL because it turns out being big is a huge advantage. But now, Michael Orr, the guy that the movie is based off of, came out and said that he saw no money from the movie based on his life. And what he actually signed when he was a kid, which is when he thought they were adopting him, what he actually signed was conservatorship so that they could get his money. I know, he thought he was getting a Disney movie. This nigga got Britney Spears. It's absolutely horrible. And what do you do in that situation? Because it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. All the damage has been done. He may never see the money. It's probably already been spent. You know what I mean? We can't give him his story back. We can't give him back those years he spent trusting them. I think I have a solution though. All we gotta do is give Michael 2 free tackles. He can use them whenever he wants. I mean, the cost of the medical bills alone will be exactly the money that they stole from him. He's still a huge man. And we won't make a movie. We'll just make 2 TikToks. 1 for each tackle. And then at the end of the TikTok, you'll just be like, blindsided. I'll be brief because I know people are tired of talking about him. It does feel weird that Trump is this indicted. Like, god damn. I thought they get him for something. I think they get him for everything. As someone who doesn't like him, I thought I was following the story pretty closely. And every time he gets indicted, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know he did that one. That's crazy. This man has 91 felony charges. That's more than most gangs. That is absolutely insane. Man, they giving Trump the full nigga treatment. This is crazy. That dude must check his hands every day to make sure they're still white. Like, how is this happening to me? And this most recent one is the wildest, because if you aren't familiar in Fulton County, where Trump was most recently indicted, this is the first place where they said that they want to process him at the jailhouse instead of the courthouse. Because if they do it at the jailhouse, they'll have to do the fingerprint and they'll have to do the mugshot, which is what he's been avoiding this entire time, which is what lets me know that he's not a good businessman. He's not. Yo, if Trump got his mugshot taken and put that mugshot on a shirt, it would be the highest selling shirt of all time. God damn. I thought they get him for something. I think they get him for everything. As someone who doesn't like him, I thought I was following the story pretty closely. And every time he gets indicted, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know he did that one. Michael Orr might be too niche, but did y'all see the drama happening with the people that the movie The Blind Side is based off of? All right. If you don't know the story, I'll bring up to speed as quickly as possible. Basically, Blind Side is a movie from 2009 where Sandra Bullock won the Oscar for playing the greatest white woman that's ever lived. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it goes Joan of Arc, Amelia Earhart. Gangs, that is done. He may never see the money. It's probably already been spent. You know what I mean? We can't give him his story back. We can't give him back those years he spent trusting them. I think I have a solution though. All we gotta do is give Michael 2 free tackles. He can use them whenever he wants. I mean, the cost of the medical bills alone will be exactly the money that they stole from him. He's still a huge man. And we won't make a movie. We'll just make 2 TikToks. 1 for each tackle. And then at the end of the TikTok, you'll just be like, blindsided. I'll be brief because I know people are tired of talking about him. But it does feel weird that Trump is this indicted. Like, god damn. I thought they get him for something. I think they get him for everything. As someone who doesn't like him, I thought I was following the story pretty closely. And every time he gets indicted, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know he did that one. That's crazy. This man has 91 felony charges. That's more than most gangs. That is absolutely insane. Man, they giving Trump the full nigga treatment. This is crazy. That dude must check his hands every day to make sure they're still white. Like, how is this happening to me? And this most recent one is the wildest, you know, because if you aren't familiar in Fulton County where Trump was most recently indicted, this is the first place where they said that they want to process him at the jailhouse instead of the courthouse. So they do it at the jailhouse. They'll have to do the fingerprint, and they'll have to do the mugshot, which is what he's been avoiding this entire time, which is what lets me know that he's not a good businessman. He's not. Yo, if Trump got his mugshot taken, put that mugshot on a shirt, it would be the highest selling shirt of all time, okay? Forget Supreme. This would be the highest selling shirt in the history of people. First of all of his fans would buy it because they'd be like, look, free my dog Trump. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of them would buy it. And then we would also buy it. We'd be like, look at this punk ass on this shirt. Look at this goofy ass on this shirt. Struggling ass on this shirt. He could be printing money, and instead he's, whatever. What a disappointment. He'd make so much money, he'd actually be a billionaire. You know what I mean? I had like a weird memory the other week of this thing happening. I thought I'd share it with you. Like my favorite person to spend time with in the entire world when I was a little kid was my grandma. And everybody knows that I'm blessed enough to have grandparents. Grandparents, instant daycare. Anytime your parents got to go somewhere, you're chilling with grandparents, right? So go everywhere my grandma went. We'd always have a good time. And I remember when I was 8, especially my mom was working really hard and everything. And when I was 8, went everywhere that my grandma went, which meant I was going to hella funerals. Oh, my grandmama's squad was falling off. Like it was rough. It was like 2 funerals a week. I was like, how many people do you know? This is crazy. They were dropping like flies. And that was the worst part, too, is that when you go to a funeral with some of the same people every time, at a certain point, you start to be like, which one of y'all is next? Like, this is getting uncomfortable. I was wearing my little suit out, okay? I remember this one funeral in particular, one more rhythmic funerals that we had been to. Everyone sort of had this unspoken agreement that when we were doing the sort of funeral procession of viewing the body, it was like to the music, you know? You walk up, you get 8 bars to grieve, and then you move on. And I remember it was my turn, which meant it was my grandma's turn. That'd be weird if I had to turn all by myself. That'd be insane. If an 8-year-old kid walks up to a casket by themselves at a funeral, they killed that person, all right? That's just an 8-year-old walking up to be like, just checking. And so I'm about to walk up with my grandma, but as we start walking, we notice that the lady that was still up there hasn't moved. So she's either still thinking or overcome with emotion. Something's happening, right? So we just keep walking. We don't want to stop mid-aisle, and so we walk up next to her. So now it's this lady that I don't know, my grandma, me. And I wouldn't look this up until years later because it gave me nightmares for a while, but I didn't really think to Google it yet. Apparently, long after the process has been done for a body to be presented at a funeral, there's still muscles, there's still nerves that can twitch, right? So as the 3 of us are standing there, the woman in the casket went. And even at 8 years old, I was like, hold it together. Hold it together, stay calm. Whatever you do, stay calm. Because look, I've been going to a lot of funerals, right? But even as an 8-year-old that's going to a lot of funerals, I still haven't fully conceptualized the idea of death, but I know what it's like to ruin a party. You know what I mean? So I was like, just calm down and hold together. I'm trying to center myself. And then the woman on the other side of my grandma goes, "What?" reason I still don't understand, my grandma turned around to the whole rest of the congregation and was like, she moved. And everybody cleared out. We all walked out together. It took so long to calm everybody down. It took so long to get people to come back inside, sit down, chill out. Because there were people outside like, nah, I'm not going back in there. No, ain't no reason to grieve if she risen. I ain't playing with that. Y'all can do what you want, but if she up, she up. All right. In fact, she owe me a little something. So when you get in there, tell her that I won my 15 if this was just like a weekend she was playing Bernie. We get back inside, finally calmed down, finally finishing procession, viewing the body and everything. There was this one woman. I know I saw her, but I caught her because I was sitting second row and I was looking in between two people. This woman hesitant. She was approaching the body, just, and she went. And even as they were lowering her at the cemetery, and they threw the dirt on her apartment, it was like, we don't know. You have no idea.
This is a beautiful, beautiful time of year. This is my favorite time of year because it's so fresh. I could do anything. I could really be anybody so far, And by January 10th, I'm like, I'm me. Never mind. I have a lot of plans, but a week and a half. It's so early in the year, it's almost weird if you've already had a bad day. You know what I mean? But this is New York, so somebody has. I was on a bus on January 2nd and just heard a guy go, fuck, just to himself. I don't know what was going on in his life, but January 2nd, he was like, it's over. That's a wrap. Oh, it's crazy. I also love this time of year because it's the last little bit of runoff where you're still trying to return Christmas presents, like the bad ones. Like you on the phone with customer service, like, no, I have the receipt, please. Like it's. And this is the thing. A lot of people give gifts and everything, but they don't know if they gave a good gift to the person, especially if they don't know them well, right? And my thing is, this is how you tell if it's a good gift in this present day we live in. If you didn't get a gift for someone from a store that was looted in 2020, that's not a good gift. I'm not going to lie. Do you know what I mean? It's a very easy metric now because, look, I'm just saying, everything's free when we looting. And there are brands that know that they didn't get touched. Like, honestly, if I was a shop owner, I would be embarrassed if I showed up the morning after a riot and I get to my store, Nike store ransacked, Louis Vuitton store unrecognizable, and then my store pristine, not even broken glass. I'd be like, I gotta hang it up. I didn't know it would be like this. Can I burn it down and say it was part of the riot? Because this is a shame. I remember that was a very specific time. This is my favorite thing about any riot that happened in the U.S. in 2020. There were some stores that boarded up that really didn't need to bother. Like, nobody talks about that, but there are a couple places that were like, oh, we got to batten down the hatches. Like, no, you really don't. I promise. Nobody is checking for you, okay? There were brands that were feeling themselves. Like, I don't know if you remember this, but you can look this up. This is a real thing that happened. In 2020, during the protests, there were Sweet Greens that boarded up in preparation.
You know what I mean? So I was like, just calm down, hold together. I'm trying to center myself. And then the woman on the other side, my grandma goes, what? Everyone sort of had this unspoken agreement that when we were doing the sort of funeral procession of viewing the body, it was like to the music, You walk up, you get 8 bars to grieve, and then you move on. And I remember it was my turn, which meant it was my grandma's turn. That'd be weird if I had a turn all by myself. That'd be insane. If an 8-year-old kid walks up to a casket by themselves at a funeral, they killed that person. All right. That's just an 8-year-old walking up to be like, just checking. And so I'm about to walk up with my grandma, but as we start walking, we notice that the lady that was still up there has to move. So she's either still thinking or overcome with emotion. Something's happening, right? So we just keep walking. We don't want to stop mid-aisle, and so we walk up next to her. So now it's this lady that I know, grandma, me. And I wouldn't look this up until years later because it gave me nightmares for a while, but I didn't really think to Google it yet. Apparently, long after the process has been done for a body to be presented at a funeral, there's still muscles, there's still nerves that can twitch, right? So as the three of us are standing there, the woman in the casket went. And even at 8 years old, I was like, hold it together. Hold it together, stay calm. Whatever you do, stay calm. Because look, I've been going to a lot of funerals, right? But even as an 8-year-old that's going to a lot of funerals, I still haven't fully conceptualized the idea of death, but I know what it's like to ruin a party. You know what I mean? So I was like, just calm down and hold together. I'm trying to center myself. And then the woman on the other side of my grandma goes, what? And for a reason I still don't understand, my grandma turned around to the whole rest of the congregation and was like, she moved. And everybody cleared out. We all walked out together. It took so long to calm everybody down. It took so long to get people to come back inside, sit down, chill out. Because there were people outside that were like, nah, I'm not going back in there. No, ain't no reason to grieve if she risen. I ain't playing with that. Y'all can do what you want, but if she up, she up. All right? In fact, she owed me a little something. So when you get in there, tell her that I want my 15 if this was just like a weekend she was playing Bernie. We get back inside, finally calmed down, finally finishing procession, viewing the body and everything. There was this one woman. I know I saw her, but I caught her because I was sitting second row and I was looking in between two people. This woman hesitant. She was approaching the body, just. And she went, wake up. And even as they were lowering her at the cemetery and they threw the dirt on her part, it was like, we don't know. You have no idea.
This is a beautiful, beautiful time of year. This is my favorite time of year because it's so fresh. I could do anything. I could really be anybody so far, you know? And by January 10th, I'm like, I'm me. Never mind. I have a lot of plans, but a week and a half. It's so early in the year, it's almost weird if you've already had a bad day. You know what I mean? But this is New York, so you know somebody has. I was on a bus on January 2nd and just heard a guy go, fuck, just to himself. I don't know what was going on in his life, but January 2nd, he was like, it's over. That's a wrap. Oh, it's crazy. I also love this time of year because it's the last little bit of runoff where you're still trying to return Christmas presents, like the bad ones. Like you on the phone with customer service, like, no, I have the receipt, please. Like, and here's the thing. A lot of people give gifts and everything, but they don't know if they gave a good gift to the person, especially if they don't know them well, right? And my thing is, this is how you tell if it's a good gift in this present day we live in. If you didn't get a gift for someone from a store that was looted in 2020, that's not a good gift. I'm not gonna lie. Do you know what I mean? It's a very easy metric now because look, I'm just saying everything's free when we looting, and there are brands that know that they didn't get touched. Like honestly, if I was a shop owner, I would be embarrassed if I showed up the morning after a riot and I get to my store, Nike store ransacked, Louis Vuitton store unrecognizable, and then my store pristine, not even broken glass. I'd be like, I gotta hang it up. I didn't know it would be like this. Can I burn it down and say it was part of the riot? Because this is a shame. I remember that was a very specific time. This is my favorite thing about any riot that happened in the U.S. in 2020. There were some stores that boarded up that really didn't need to bother. Like, nobody talks about that, but there are a couple places that were like, oh, we got to batten down the hatches. Like, no, you really don't. I promise. Nobody is checking for you, okay? There were brands that were feeling themselves. Like, I don't know if you remember this, but you can look this up. This is a real thing that happened. In 2020, during the protests, there were Sweet Greens that boarded up in preparation. Sweet Green. I want to meet the person who made the decision. I want to meet the person who was like, all right, it might get crazy out here in Seattle. And you know it when it gets crazy. You know what niggas love is arugula. So we got to hold it down, all right? Got to protect the inventory, okay? No, you don't need to bother. You know, I said all that to say if you got me a Christmas present this year, a gift card from Sweet Green, you fucked up. That wasn't the move. You bought me grass. Have y'all been watching that Squid Game show? Okay, if you haven't watched it, then genuinely, I'm begging you, don't watch it. Okay, if you don't know what Squid Game is as a show, Squid Game, the show is a Korean drama, all right? It's probably one of the best TV shows that we have that fully encapsulates the idea of capitalism and what we do to each other when we're lacking, when we have need, and when there's literal money floating over our heads, the links that will go, right? And even the show becoming a show is a Cinderella story because the guy that wrote it, he pitched it around the world for 10 years and nobody wanted it. Finally, Netflix bought it. They put it up on their platform. It became an international sensation. There's games, there's toys, there's everything. And then they made the game show, which is weird. That's pretty odd because that means they also watched the show and they saw what a commentary was on the human psyche when it comes to money, when it comes to access and everything. And then they were like, yeah. We should do that. Yes, we should do that. Let's round up these pores and make them battle it out. We'll get 400 of the saddest stories you've ever heard in your fucking life. It's insane. And this is the other reason that I'm begging you not to watch it, okay? In the show Squid Game, the Korean drama, when you lose, you die. In the game show, when you lose, a pack goes off. It explodes on you, and it's black. It's not red. It's ink. Squid Game, very clever. And it explodes, but they still make the people fall like they die. Anybody. Because I'm going to finish the show. It's compelling. But it's just a weird thing. I don't know. It's very unsettling because they make all these people tell the saddest parts of their life and they cut to them in the show and you know they're not going to win. Why are you telling me this? This is a physical American Idol. Why are you telling me the sad story and you know they're not going to get far? That's terrible. It'll be a dude with the biggest tearjerker you could ever imagine. He's like, I'm just want to bring money back home for my cousin. He's got cancer herpes and he doesn't have a real house. He got half a house, so I want to pay for him to finish his house because he get rained on anytime it rains sideways a little bit, and so I just want to have a full roof for him to be under, not half a roof, because he really got like half an umbrella over his head right now, and so I just want to do something nice for him because he donated a bunch of his bones to orphans, and so he already didn't have a good life to begin with. And then they zoom out of the person playing the game and you see he's the shortest man that's ever lived. You're like, he's not gonna get far at all. Physical limitations alone. Why are you getting me attached to his story? Or even worse, they'll interview like a smart woman, and you be like, they not gonna let her get far at all. She gonna slip up and say a big word in front of them, and the dumbs are gonna jump on her. She gonna say one of those encyclopedia words that be like, get her out. She look like she can do puzzles. No, it's so jarring. Are y'all also following this Gypsy Rose thing? Okay. In case you don't know anything about Gypsy Rose, I'll try to bring you up to speed as quickly as possible. Gypsy Rose is a young woman, used to be girl. She was a girl when all this happened. Her mom has Munchausen by proxy, so her mom convinced her she was sick, convinced everyone else she was sick, told people she was sick, raised money for her because she was so sick. So she was like GoFundMe before GoFundMe, right? And so she was like raising all this money and everything. Then Gypsy realizes, hey, I'm not as sick as you're making me out to be. Around the same time that this happens, right? She makes a friend online. They start dating. That becomes her boyfriend, okay? And then she tells her boyfriend, you need to kill my mom so we can be together. I was not in the room when this conversation happened. But the way that I think it went was Gypsy gets close to this person and is like, you're going to have to kill my mom so we can be together. And then he said, I was planning on killing somebody anyway, because it took so little convincing. This man is clearly out of his mind, right? Killing a mom should be several conversations. You should have to wear me down to kill your mom. If you tell someone, I need you to kill my mom so we can be together, and they go, yup, you are also in danger. That is absolute insanity. He said yes so quick. That's the reddest flag there is. He said it so quick. Once again, I was not in the room, but he agreed to it so fast. I'm pretty sure he finished her sentence. I'm pretty sure she was like, hey, I need you to. He's like, kill your mama, I got it. And she was like, I was going to say pass the remote, but okay. And so then that's what happens. They meet up, and then he kills the mom, and then they get caught immediately. They get caught so fast. I was genuinely disappointed in them. I was like, you couldn't make it a day. You got caught. They got caught so insanely quickly. And so then they're not together anymore because then they flipped on each other and everything. And it's hard to stay together when you first 48'd each other. Where you just immediately like, it was his crazy ass. I said it at once and he did it. And so then Gypsy got way less time than him, and she got out. She's out now. She got like 7 years. He got life because I'm pretty sure she only had to remind him once. I'm pretty sure she only had to be like, hey, that thing about killing your mama, yeah, it's on my calendar. All right. And look, I'm just saying, the main thing that they did wrong, besides killing a person, the main thing that they did wrong is that they didn't really understand the internet the way we don't really understand the internet. So all they did was have the most incriminating conversations online, right? I'm pretty sure they Skyped at one point. I was like, can you stop doing recordable stuff? And so then she gets out, and I saw like a TikTok of her, wishing everybody well, thanking everyone for wishing her well and everything, saying Happy New Year's. And then she said something interesting to me. She was like, I'm spending New Year's with my dad, my stepmom, and my husband. I was like, husband? And I was just shocked. I didn't know she had a husband. So I looked into it, and she had met somebody, and they got married in 2022. And I looked him up. Have y'all seen the husband? Yeah. Y'all seen? Okay. That man looks more like the Kevin James meme than Kevin James. So I was genuinely blown away. There's a picture of him with Gypsy Rose where he's like, and it's not even a diss. That's just his swag, is that like cheeky, everything. And then apparently some people were coming for him online for some weird reason. I have no idea. And then Gypsy came to his defense, and she was like, it's okay, baby. They're just jealous because the D is fire. You know what? I'm glad you had a happy ending. I'm glad some people couldn't be here. Some people didn't wake up today. What I just said could apply to anyone.
if you haven't heard, OJ has passed. Yeah, you can tell by the. You can just tell. Okay, you can tell by the excitement that some people have how they felt during the trial. Yeah, there's a couple people that have been so happy. I'm like, oh, I know where you stood back in the day. Wow. Okay. There are people out here finally got him, you know. Which is crazy because when you look at like OJ's feed when he was posting, there had been this rumor that he was actually in hospice care earlier this year, and then there's a video of him in his car, which someone is obviously filming the video, and he rolls down the window and everything, and he's like, hospice? Hospice? Me? No, I'm doing very well. And so if he was doing very well, and now he's dead, do you think somebody I don't know. I mean, it'd be kind of funny. Yeah. You know? It feels a bit weird. You know what I mean? Like he just seemed like one of those people that would just be around forever. Not in a way that I'm like, oh, I'm excited that he's around. Just like every once in a while you would see a tweet from him or you'd see something and you'd be like, oh yeah, OJ is out. Yeah, I mean, and I say out because he did go to jail, just not for the thing we know him for. That's my biggest disappointment with OJ. You think after getting away with murder, you'd lay low. You know what I mean? Like, this is the time to play it cool, okay? You just got away with the most public we've ever seen. Like, the whole nation was watching, and then they said not guilty. And then you were like, let's roll the dice again. But now, yeah, now he's gone. And it's gotta be weird. Like him and Nicole are gonna have a conversation. You know what I mean? Like, I'm joking. They definitely didn't go to the same place. I've had like a journey on the internet as far as having it, right? Because I pretty much got internet the way that we have it now. And it wasn't even the way that we have it now when I was little. I got internet in like a all access type of way when I was like 11. So I was little, but there weren't things that I had before me. Like before, if you went back further than that, you'd have to like know how to code and stuff. 11 was when I could like get on the internet and type in boobs.com. And it's the internet has brought so many people together in the best and worst of ways, right? Because it used to be, before the internet, if you wanted community, you had to go out, you had to find your sort of like tribe of people, but on a more like, on a more mindful level, you had to find your people, right? And it was very hard. It was very hard for a lot of people with specific interests, and it was very hard for a lot of people who were struggling with specific things. That's why it's like from 2000 and on that like every type of struggle, it feels like, is known and talked about. Because, yeah, you might have a bunch of friends who have just never been through the thing that you've been through, but now that you can look it up, now that you can find people. And so message boards took off. Message boards were like this forum for everyone that believed in or liked the same thing. It was instant common ground, you know? And it was before the sort of like platforms, really. So you didn't have to worry. Like if you were on a forum about a video game that you liked, you didn't have to